The question that I'm often asked is, do I believe that Trevor Lawrence is the long-term solution at quarterback? Yes. But I do have a few questions. We'll talk about that here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, it is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast each and every day. Whether you watch or listen, we will be right there. So make sure you tap into your favorite location so you do not miss an episode of the show. Like the one today that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hello to the everydayers for joining us each and every day. We appreciate you. And if it's your first time, make sure you tap in and hopefully I give you a reason to come back. Here's what we're going to do. This is the Trevor Lawrence show, right? We're going to break this down into two different parts and we'll split them in the first 1.5 segments and the second 1.5 segments. Normally we do 3, but I think this deserves our attention to the point where we can do 2 segments and tie it all together. The back half of the show, we'll talk about what does Trevor need to improve the most. These are all mailbag questions, and I incorporated them into a show. So I did not mention your name, and especially with a lot of these questions, multiple people, while they didn't ask the same question, sort of asked the same type of question. So that's why we are going to answer that one. But we're going to start the show talking about, is Trevor Lawrence the long-term quarterback? That has 3 prongs to it. One of them is, do I personally believe that him being here long-term is going to lead the Jaguars to a championship? I'll get to that one last. 2 of the other questions about that is yeah, he's a long-term quarterback because his extension doesn't start till next season. So that's another thing that we have to sort of dissect. But the third one is this. Is he the guy for this new regime, and is it going to work out? That's the bottom line, whether, is he the quarterback long-term? This is about not only what he has been assigned because of where he was picked, but then that was reaffirmed by his extension, not only his 5th-year option, but his $250 million extension. And with the words that have been said by both Tony Boselli as well as Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, about how much they believe in Trevor Lawrence. Do I believe them when they say that? Yes, I do. Do I think they're crazy for saying it? I do not. Getting a quarterback in the National Football League is very, very difficult. Getting one that's a top half quarterback is even more difficult. Out of 32 guys, you got a guy that's a top 16 guy. Okay, but that's not where we want to go as a franchise. That's not where Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be. He wasn't supposed to be sitting there talking about him going into year 5 as being a top 16 quarterback. We're supposed to be talking about Trevor Lawrence being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Thanks to stuff like he's the prince that was promised and sunshine and all of these things. And something else I always mention, and that is just give Trevor the ball and get out of the way. Something else I like to remember is he needs to be a part of every decision that this organization makes. I'm talking about people were saying this crap before he ever took one snap. So we got to go back and peel the layers through that first. And I'm going to tell you why that was a mistake. It's even a bigger mistake is because I think the former coaching staff believed it and thought the same way. They didn't insulate that quarterback. They didn't sit that quarterback, down and just let him be a 20-some-odd-year-old dude, ingratiated with his teammates, looking at film, getting better with his guys. Outside of them going to the lake house and throwing the ball and him doing some workout in the off season, a lot of kumbaya stuff. I'm going to tell you, it was a way more fun had during those sessions than football. And ain't nothing wrong with that. But the bottom line here is there was too much We have a talented guy, just don't screw it up mentality when it comes to the handling of Trevor Lawrence. And it really ticked me off because I warned everybody that shouldn't happen. Trevor Lawrence was, for this organization, the equal of getting a really nice scratch off. You know, when you get rich like that overnight, you really need financial advisors that you can trust. You really need a good lawyer to teach you how to shelter money. And you really need an understanding of finances if you don't want to entrust other people to do it. That's when you actually have to be a little bit more prudent about the allocation of funds and resources. The Jaguars hit lotto, and what they did was put on a colorful shirt, head to Cancun, just like some dude in England that won a whole bunch of money and spent it all on stuff he wasn't supposed to spend it all on, and then he ended up back doing construction. Shout out to the construction workers. Ain't nothing wrong with doing construction. My uncles did construction, all of them. And they live in large right now. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But it ain't football. And if either one of my uncles that won lotto or hit a scratch off, I guarantee you they wouldn't be the only construction they'd be building. The only thing they'd be building is adding houses and rooms and stuff to their own acreage. They wouldn't be out here working for nobody else. And that's the example that I'm giving. And the reason why I'm using that analogy is because not enough was done. They needed to treat Trevor like he was Brock Purdy in some ways and allow the talent to do what the talent does on the field in certain moments, but you got to harness it. You got to get him to the point where he can play better early in games. Recently, Trevor was talking to somebody and he said about the system that Liam Cohen runs. He said, it provides answers for you. I'm talking about pre-snap. It provides answers for you and it tells you where you need to go. It does some of the heavy lifting for the young quarterback until the young quarterback can recognize that stuff on his own and do the heavy lifting on his own. Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer, whoever else, they depended on just talent and talent alone. They have a clue as to how to make Trevor Lawrence the quarterback he was supposed to be. Doug Peterson never did it. As a head coach, he didn't develop Carson Wentz. And if he did, Carson Wentz developed into what? Carson Wentz. Nick Foles was an overachiever. Nick Foles was a journeyman. And he won a Super Bowl. So I guess that means that he was the quarterback whisperer. Well, you know, you can go, I ain't going to say that, but you can get, if you have a working dog, you better put them on a schedule and you better really, really teach them and you better have them socialize. It ain't the same as having a lab or it ain't the same as having a Shih Tzu. You got you a Dutch Shepherd or a Rottweiler, you better get busy putting structure around them. And that's what happens when you have talented people. If you want to win in the end, you have to harness it all. I'm going to tell you why I believe Trevor Lawrence is the long-term answer besides the fact that they paid him like he is already. We're going to get to it, man. And then I'll tell you the things that I believe Trevor himself needs to improve on. We'll get to that more in a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. You know those NBA playoffs are in full swing. And I know you know it because the games have been absolutely so enjoyable, and you need to get in on the action. FanDuel is the truth. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never a better time to get in on that action. It makes it easy at FanDuel to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are going to show up in the biggest moments? Last night, it was SGA and not Ant-Man. Now you got to get to the East Coast. Will it be Halliburton or Brunson? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I've been talking about Trevor Lawrence, and I've been giving you a little bit of just letting you know what the temperature is and setting the outline for everything that Trevor has done here, hasn't done here, the perception surrounding him locally, not nationally. I'm not getting into that can of worms because you know what that's going to end up. That's going to end up me calling some people out. And that ain't the time for this. It's time for education. You guys are getting ready for your nice weekend, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence. Is he the long-term quarterback? He's the long-term quarterback. Now, is he the answer? Is he the long-term answer at quarterback? He has a 5-year extension that he's going to start in 2026. That'll take him up to, I believe, 2029. And I believe in 2030 and 31 and 32, Trevor Lawrence will still be the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. I think he'll make a boatload of playoff appearances. And I think they're going to put him in a position to lift this team to higher levels. Do I believe it's going to happen? I have no clue. And I'm not going to sit here just to, engage you and farm out clicks to say, yeah, he's going to win a Super Bowl by 2031. All right, cool. When you ask me how I know, to tell you the truth and say, oh, I was just guessing. I'll never do that to y'all. Everything I do has to be with practicality. I'm not going to be bleeding teal and black so much that I'm going to sit here and pretend to try to gas y'all up. If he does certain things, the things I think he needs to improve on, sure. But there's a lot of factors in this, man. The defense, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, all of the things, the little things that they have to do each and every day. And don't tell me y'all don't remember. We saw the Jaguars not be able to transfer what they said was good practices to be able to go on the field and play good games. They couldn't even play 4 straight quarters the same way. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. That means that's a team that hasn't done a whole bunch of the little things. That's a team that hasn't done a whole bunch of the little things that are required for you to be able to win championships. So, yeah, he's been assigned monetarily as well as draft status. The draft status part is over because the initial contract with the 5th-year option ends this season in 2025, mainly because they re-upped him. Now, the Jaguars re-upped Blake Bortles too, but they gave him like a $26 million guarantee with 40-some-odd. He played one more year and they let him go. That's not the case with Trevor Lawrence. So that's why I get to this question when people say, is he going to be the long-term answer? And I'm thinking like, it's kind of loaded because contractually, yeah, he's already the long-term answer. Whether he actually is or not, he's going to get every single chance. Trevor Lawrence right now is like a pitcher that comes into the Major League Baseball and he's left-handed and can throw 102. He's going to get every single chance you can imagine to fail before they say he's a failure. I'm going to have some good news for you in segment 3. But right now, we just got to talk about it for what it is, man. Like, we don't know how he's going to respond. And a lot of this has nothing to do with how good he was when he came out of Clemson. A lot of this is how good is he now that since he came out of Clemson and he's been playing behind a bad offensive line with average at best wide receivers, with average at best coaching, at best average coaching. Is he gun shy? Is there such thing as rehabilitation for a dude that may have lost a little bit of his mojo because things aren't going quite the way that everybody anticipated that they would go? And I'm speculating on the mojo part, but I think it's just a natural progression for a dude that's been a winner his whole life, that once he starts losing way more than he's winning, he wants to get back to the winning side of it. And we have to hope he hasn't gotten used to or desensitized to the fact that he's not winning. We give people so much credit for being winners their whole lives. Well, Trevor Lawrence's professional life, for the most part, he hasn't won a whole bunch. What's their record? What are they? 3-13 the first year, 4-17 last year, and then 9-8 2 years in a row. There's no way he got a winning record, nowhere near it. I ain't gonna even type it up. A 7-26, I believe, in the 2 bad seasons, the first one and the last one. So that's 7-26. Ain't no way they're coming back. And I ain't even including playoff games. Of course, if I did, it wouldn't matter with those 2 seasons because they didn't make the playoffs. Well, 3 of the 4 they didn't make it. And then there were 18 and 16 other than that. So that's 25 and 45 or 42. 25 and 42 is not good. I don't think he's ever completed 70% of his passes. But it hasn't been a disaster. It just hasn't been what everybody thought it was going to be because the Jaguars are not what they should have been. So now you got to ask the question, how do they do it? Do they peel the layers off? Do they wipe the stink off? Do they just surround him with a whole bunch of more talent and then just kind of relieve him of the expectation that he has to be this big-armed Josh Allen quarterback? Josh Allen last year in critical games, he won the MVP, but there were games last year, especially in the playoffs, where they depended on their running game. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a great year statistically last year because they had to adjust. They had to depend on their running game. So I ask you, how come these other quarterbacks that have accomplished a lot, and maybe that is the answer, how come those guys that have accomplished so much, how come they get mulligans when they have to do things differently and nobody says that they're not a system? Nobody calls them a system quarterback. Joe Burrow putting up all those numbers and running for his life and ain't winning a thing up there in Cincinnati after that one season. What's wrong with having the answers in your offensive game plan and in your structure? These are actually the things that they should have done, even though he was the number 1 pick in the draft. If they had a draft like over the last 20 years, put all the prospects, not knowing how they were going to pan out, put all the prospects over the last 20 years in a bag, shake it up and draw them out, Trevor Lawrence would have gone in the top 3. Andrew Luck. And who else? Maybe Jameis Winston at the time. Yeah. So the expectations have been like super through the roof for Trevor Lawrence. And when I say insulate him, I mean like adding 5 offensive linemen in the offseason. When I say insulate him, I say even though you got Brian Thomas Jr., you go and get Travis Hunter. I say do championship things, even if you don't feel like your quarterback is yet a championship type quarterback. These things have to get done. It's like, what do you put before the chicken or the egg, or the cart before the horse? All of these things, just do the things that you have to do in order to be a good football team and let things play out. But you have to protect him. You have to surround him. Some of this is stuff that there's some things that Trevor has to do on his own. Oh, you asked. Good. I'll tell you here. Segment number 3 on Locked On Jaguars. All right, Trevor Lawrence. What does he have to do? First of all, before we get to anything that involves actual playing on the field, one of the first things you have to do if you're Trevor Lawrence, you have to wipe the slate clean mentally. You have to clean or cleanse the palate. Whatever you have to drink, when you're tasting stuff, you drink something, you wash your mouth out, you have to clean. Or when you're smelling cologne, you smell coffee grounds and it clears the stink off. You got to get the Urban Meyer and Doug Peterson stink up out of here and up off of you. One good way to handle this publicly is to say, yeah, I like the new stuff, but there's a lot of things I have to work on too. I'm not just going to sit here and get babysat and say, yeah, fix me. No, there are things I have to work on. How do I start games better and not be an overthrower? How do I learn that every single possession matters? Doug Peterson and Press Taylor didn't do him any favors by just treating the game like we'll just keep just throwing stuff out. It was like John Madden. It was like a 12-year-old. It's like, we'll just keep figuring something out until it works. Not having that structure. It's like they broke the huddle and you'd be like, all right, let's see. And it looked like they broke the huddle thinking like, all right, let's see. Football isn't like that, man. You have to be detailed. Just found out earlier, I was doing another show with Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. One of the reasons Mike Tomlin has always had a winning record is because he says that one thing Tomlin is really, really good at, even though his team might not be the best, he is really good at those matchups. Exploiting matchups or things that the other team doesn't do, and he is going to stay on it, and that's why he stays in the games. Jacksonville has never done that. Maybe they didn't felt like they were good enough to exploit somebody else's matchup. Maybe they were in exploitation themselves waiting to happen. Don't know, but I can tell you this. Whatever it was, Trevor needs to cleanse his palate and understand that these guys got his back, but he has to meet them. I beat everyone at the facility or to the facility. It's going to be hard to beat Travis Hunter. I heard he's there really, really early all the time. I'd sleep there if I had to. In the new building, of course. I wouldn't sleep in that old building. I'd sleep in the new building. But that's what I'd do if I was him. I spend all my time, other than the 30 minutes that I spend hugging up my wife and my kid, my daughter every day, and maybe eating and getting your body back together. I spend all my time with a playbook. I absolutely would if I'm Trevor Lawrence. I don't hold anything back when it comes to that. I prepare. I spend days and days and days and hours throwing the ball to Brian Thomas Jr., Diami Brown, and of course, Travis Hunter. Revamp your footwork, man. Figure it out. Get out of your own way, especially early in games. I would convince myself if I was Trevor Lawrence that because of this new system, I just got to do my job. I don't have to sit here and do anything more than that. Until I'm in that position where it requires me to go a little bit above and beyond, then that's what I'll do. I'll let the moment happen instead of trying to create those moments all the time and play hero ball, because hero ball had to be played because you knew your team wasn't very good. What I do now is learn that I can now trust the coaches. I can trust the system. I can trust myself. Because you're prepared. Because you've gone through all of the things that you've gone through. Because now you'll understand that there's a system in place that will provide some answers for you. Now every ball doesn't have to be perfect. It'd be nice, though, if it was almost perfect, but you get my point. Now there will become a lot of easy scores because you get the ball in the hands of people that turn into running backs once the ball is in their hand. Now you get a little bit more time to throw the ball because your offensive line is better. They're not only better technically, they're better physically because they have a psychological advantage, if I can say that word correctly. They have an advantage because they got the other team thinking that all they're going to do is come out and punch them right in their chin strap every single time. So now the linebackers are trying to help the defensive linemen. The DBs know that they have to stick their nose in on the running game, and they have to be wary because there are people at every level on both sides of the field that if they get that ball even behind the line of scrimmage, they can turn that into something. Everybody has to be aware of everything. And the reason why I said that Trevor Lawrence is good because the offense will provide answers for him is an offense that provides answers for their quarterback also provides problems for a defense. And while you have the answers, they're over there scrambling to try to figure out a solution. And now here comes the whoops-a-daisy. You run this way and they overreact, and now you come the other way and everything's wide open. It's more first downs. It's more touchdowns. It's the ability to score by handing the ball off whenever you get first and goal on the 5-yard line. All of these things will help Trevor Lawrence be better. The most important thing, though, is going to be winning. When I say win, I don't necessarily mean the Super Bowl right away, although that would be nice too. When I say win, I mean be really, really super competitive against really, really good teams. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Although it's in the NFL, there are going to be some days where that doesn't happen, and there's going to be some other days where you come close to it not happening. But for the most part, most teams in the NFL that are good enough, they beat the opponents that they're supposed to beat. And they at least split and are super, super competitive with the games that everybody considers toss-ups. The more of those games Trevor Lawrence wins because of all of these other things improving, the more people will stop saying things about him. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to start saying he's great because people don't like being wrong. And that will require folks to look in the mirror and shake that L off and admit that Trevor's a lot better than they thought. And if you're going to wait for that, you might be waiting for a long time because people are stubborn. But what will happen is they'll have a hard time opening their mouth talking crap now. If a team is winning, you'll notice that all those people that usually chirp, they'll stop chirping, or they'll go out of their way to make excuses or say it won't last, or they'll go out of their way to make excuses for why it's not really him, it's other people. Like they do with Trayvon and his sacks. Oh, he's getting most of those sacks because Josh is leading in pressures, which has a little bit of truth to it, but not really. Trayvon's getting them because of Trayvon. You can put somebody on the other side of Josh, he can get those pressures, and they wouldn't be in a position to redirect and finish plays. But don't expect those people that say bad things about the Jaguars to all of a sudden up jump the boogie and stop if and when those things change, especially if they change rapidly. You'll hear stuff like, it's 2017 all over again. Jaguars going Jaguar. It's 22 all over again. Jaguars going to Jaguar. So they'll do the same thing with Trevor. He throws for 4,800 yards and 31 touchdowns and 10 picks. The team wins double-digit games. Yeah, we'll see how long it lasts. That's just how they are, man. You can't worry about it. What you need to understand is Trevor Lawrence just needs to buy in, understand that there are things that he can improve on himself. Leave no question that you work hard enough, because there was a question by one or two people that don't work here anymore. Leave no question. This coaching staff has made football fun again. Your coach used to play quarterback, just like your other coach did. But still, they speak the language of these young players way better than the coaches that left here. And more importantly, they listen. Dog, like my man said, you ain't got to be nothing more than what you already are. Just be the best version of yourself. And if you're Trevor Lawrence, that's been pretty damn good your whole life. I don't know why it shouldn't be good enough now. What is good enough is watching Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. Two guys break it down like you can't get it anywhere else, and they teach you more about these 90-man rosters from around the league than anyone. And you'll be the smartest football fan on earth by watching Locked On NFL Scouting. Make sure you tap into Locked On Jaguars each and every day as well, because I appreciate it. And I appreciate y'all spending 27 and a half minutes with me today. You guys take care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time on Locked On Jaguars.